Hey guys, welcome to another all bass creations effects tutorials, demos, and review. Today we're going to be going over a nice recording setup for you guys using your pedals and whatever multi-effects or IR cabinet loader you're using, whether it be a Zoom B6 or a Line 6 HX Stomp or the Helix, Kemper, all of these things. We're just gonna go over a basic effects order for you guys. And we're gonna go over some cheaper options for you guys. So, if you don't wanna break the bank, you ain't really got to, just to get a good recording setup sound. So as usual, we'll start with my bass dry. Alright, so first thing I like to do, if I'm just doing the bass sound, from there, I'll be adding um, probably one of my preamp pedals, which is in this setup, we're going to do, first we're going to do ampless. So first we're going to do basically like, if you had to do a recording in a studio at a house, somebody's house, and you can't make noise or you don't have your amps, or you just want a consistent sound when you're on stage and you don't have an amp, this is, some of the first options we're going to go over. So having things like, as you can see in the bottom, if you look at the top, the box at the right here, if you look to the left bottom corner of that, so how do I do this? Right here, this area, those are my preamps. um, it's an ampeg SGT-DI. It's a and there's an Aguilar AG preamp, an Eden WTDI, as well as if I want additional amp models, I have some of those on here as well. But those are the analog ones I have on my pedal board. And I use some digital, like I have a GK model I like in the MS60B that's also available on the Zoom B6, B3. Not the B6 doesn't have a GK model, Galley and Kruger. But the MS60B does and the Zoom B3 does. So that's another tone option. But yeah, let's just, for now, we'll start with just the SGT, Ampeg SGT. So that's with the SGT on. Let me see what I got on there. I don't have any of the bass boost or treble boost on. No, none SGT circuit is in on. It's only the preamp boosting the bass around 2 o'clock. Um, Cutting the mids set. The mids are set to about 500 and cutting to about 11. And the highs are boosted to around probably about 130 on that. So next up, I don't the compressor on. If you're on a budget, you can just get an SGT-DI and run two lines out. So run one line out from the preamp to your audio interface, and then run one line XLR out with the IR section if you just want to do that. And that way you got an entire Ampeg little setup in one box, for 400. All analog except for the IR cabinets, which is awesome. I don't particularly like the ones they have loaded in there. That's just me. You guys could, it also, you can load it, your custom ones yourself. You can make some, or you can buy some from somebody else, but I don't particularly like the ones in there because they don't have a lot of clarity, in my opinion, the way they were made. So, moving on. Um, Next up would be my multi-band compressor, which is TC Electronic Spectracomp. In in the default, it's actually the same compressor that comes in this TC Electronic head here, and it's same exact sound and everything. So if you just put it on the default, it's pretty much the same one that comes in the TC Electronic heads. The big boy heads, the more expensive ones, basically. So as you can see, right there, you already just with the preamp and the compressor, you already got a good DI sound there. So now what I like to do is from there, because we're not talking about getting into all the effects and everything. We're just talking about tone, just getting you a nice. Say you got a request to record a track, a remote recording at your house, that you have to send off to an engineer. That's what this application is more so for. And I'm also going to show you how to incorporate your amp for cheap. If you want to use a real cabinet and mix it in there, show you how to do that too. But that's coming up in a little bit. So that would be the SGT-DI, with the compressor off into the TC Electronic Spectracomp. Now we're coming down to the iPad or the Zoom V6. It will go to the volume pedal for there if I want to do some swells. But I also run this Neve Preamp 1073. So as you can see, I have that gain dimed. I got the gain all the way up, just so I have pretty much as much saturation as possible, or emulation of the saturation. A little bit of bass boost on there, a little bit of treble, a little bit of cut on the mids at 350. But it's a little boost around 55 on the bass, and boost around a little small, even smaller boost on treble around 10K. So it gives you a lot of clarity, gives you some more bottom, as well as just the nice characteristics of a Neve preamp, which changed this game changer. So right there, you on that is a nice bass tone. It's gonna sit real nice in the mix for you, right? And as well as it gives the sound engineer, the mixing engineer, a lot more flexibility. One thing you don't want to do is put too much on it, and then the mix engineer has to undo all of that or try to combat all of that. So even on the Spectracomp, I have the knob turned all the way to the left, just so it's just on. It's not really squashing much of anything or taking much of anything out. Um, and with the SGT, I kind of just shaped it. And then when I got to the Neve, I just added some body and saturation, and just basically more texture to it. Um, yeah, so it's a little warmer. Basically, I added a little bit of warmth with the Neve there. Then when I'm running my Zoom B6, I run the send out. So what you've been hearing is just the send. So just a nice solid DI sound right there. Sounds like a nice B15 running out of there. Let me turn on this SGT circuit. That's one thing I do love about having these different preamps right there. Pretty much from right there, I can run all my different preamps into this Neve. That's the whole purpose. This Neve clone here, 1073 preamp clone emulation, whatever you want to call it. It adds so much to your tone. I'm gonna take this other stuff off real quick and give you just that. I'm gonna give you just the Neve preamp. Without it. With it. without it. With it. Mind you, you really don't have to have any other um you really don't have to have any other preamp right there. Let me see something real quick. Let me show you guys something. If I was just gonna use the Neve by itself, those would probably be pretty close to my settings there. Put your own. So you were just hearing it going back and forth with it on and with it off. And those are the settings I use for just when it's just the, if I'm going to use just the Neve as my preamp, which I am growing quite fond of. I'm actually coming to prefer this little Neve clone over some other analog preamps that I have, or at least having it as a sweetener for it. So that's why I have this setting here where everything is just like, it's just a little touch of EQ from the Neve, but a lot of the saturation. So, for when I'm using other amps. So, all right, let's bring the SGT back in. We're going to bring in the TC Electronic Spectracomp back in. We got the pre-1073 on, and now we're going to add this Aguilar IR. Pretty much it's a 410s with a tweeter, mic'd up with a D20 and an SM57. So, here we go. So that's with just the IR. But what I like to do is mix the two. So basically, I have it set up so to the send, I have pretty much a DI out. You know what I'm saying? I got the SGT, the Spectracomp, and the 1073 running to one channel. That's this one. Right? But then I also have the dry out. And that's actually has the IR on it. So I have the send which is a 1/4 inch out from the send, running into the mixer, and then I have an XLR running from there as like a DI, as and then that has the IR on it. So one channel has the DI signal and one channel has the IR signal coming out of it. So got them split up there. So that way you can mix the two. So say I wanted my primary signal to be the DI, right? I can now bring in the cabinet as well. Or if I want the cabinet to be my primary and I just want the DI just for a little definition. So now you got plenty of options. Your engineers got plenty of options, And if you don't want, say you wanted to add any amount of clarity or whatever the case, you could easily do that. Just pretty much just turn the EQ down on the Neve. And that's going to give you give you less booty and less characteristics from the Neve, which tighten it up. And of course, you can switch out these cabinets. Say I wanted a 4, or I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna switch out the SGT for the Aguilar AG preamp. I can swap that preamp out again for the eating. I can swap the cabinets out. Let's see. Let's go with the SVT 14s. You can swap that out, of course. So just depends on what you want to do, and the Spectracomp I never really take past. The highest I usually go with it is about 11 o'clock. Usually I keep it around at 6 o'clock area, which is all the way to the counterclockwise, all the way to the left, which gives you full bottom like this. Around 9 o'clock. So yeah, keeps it nice and clean. Here's the SGT with the SVT4. with the SGT circuit. So that's kind of like a two-line scenario. If you have the ability to run two inputs, sometimes the majority of the time, bass players we get the short end of the stick with that. We get a mono signal, right? So say you don't get a two-channel signal. That's with so basically, let's turn the send off. Say you only got the XLR out, which would suck, but um, we'll use this scenario to set up the live amp. If you got a live amp that you're going to be running that preamp DI sound to, but we'll start here. So basically, now we're just running XLR out of the main out. So now this balance here on the IR is going to become way more important, and it's going to become pretty much, instead of having two separate signals they can work with, you're pretty much going to have to balance it. My recommendation is probably 90% DI, 10% cabinet, and pretty much nobody gets mad at you. Nobody's going to be mad at you if they get a signal, get a signal that's 90% DI and 10% cabinet. Like, I haven't had any complaints with that. So that's what I recommend. I'll give you a little bit of that. So now we're only going to have the one output. And this is when I recommend doing. I invert the phase to like -11 on the balance. So let's, without the HD, that was on the B15 side. Let's do the SVT side. B15 side. All right. So then with on the AG preamp, we're gonna run it with the bright and deep switches on. Then you also got like the DI types on the B6 as well. So like 2-1. Two, two. and that's actually the ready or the red DI, whatever you want to call it, um, clone of the DI type, and solid state 2. So, and then you got DI2, solid state 2, which is the um, Neve DI, active DI clone or emulation. That that is a nice bass sound. You know, you can definitely work with that a lot. If you need more of the DI signal, of course you can, move this to -4 or -1, whatever. So if I bypass everything on here on the B6, add it back in. So, just by playing around with the balance, you'll get different characteristics out of your sound there. So like I said, if I'm running straight, straight to the system from the B6 and I'm not using any amp, I'm usually going to set this around -11 and adjust the lows and the highs from there. That way I'm getting a good amount of my dry signal in there as well. You can do things like this as well. You can put it on -4 or 6, whatever you're going to put it on, where it's primarily the DI signal. So pretty much, when I'm using my B6, I'm either going really, for the most part, either be using this Neve 1073 preamp or one of the DI types. I don't use them both at the same time, typically, just because it oversaturates it. It just makes it it's too much of the fake tube emulation, I just, or type, or just too much of that saturated, trying to emulate that analog sound. Too much. But when I take it like this, you know what I'm saying, and then to mix it in like that, man, it's usually get a nice sound from it. And you can, change the different IRs to whatever it is you would like. Swap out the IRs for, well, I don't use cabinet simulations. I only use IRs. IRs are a little different than cabinet simulations. Like they have these cabinet simulations, and I really don't like them too much. Let's go through one of those real quick, see what that sounds like. Let's do a 30. Yeah, let's do that. So that versus an IR of the same thing. We had like this 30-40 split at first. as you can see, those are two night and day things. That IR versus that cabinet is ridiculous. It's not even close. Simulation versus an actual IR of the actual cabinet. So it's just like the IRs are have much more depth and just sound better to me. But yeah, so you got plenty of options to swap any of this little stuff out. But this is just like your basic recording chain. Something you don't even have to have the extra. You don't have to run double preamps. You don't have to do all that I'm doing right there. This is just how I tend to do it. I actually have a preamp in my bass too, so technically I'm running three different preamps. You know what I'm saying? Um, so, but start with a decent sounding bass, and then start with some newer strings, and then if you wanted to, you could just get a Zoom B6 and just do this 1073 into the IR. An amazing setup for recording. Um, if I only gonna run one line, I would also run this Neve last. Eden. and that's an acoustic 18. I'm not a fan of acoustic stuff either. I'm not. I don't know. I've just never been a fan of acoustic stuff. Um, but yeah, so pretty much that's good right there. I mean, I also let me see. I also got this GK um, amp emulation as well that I use sometimes. And so, if you wanted to do like have wanted to do something where you can have your actual cabinet mic, you can take something like just a basic kick mic. For example, for this example, I'm going to use a CAD D12. Run you about 30, $40. Really cheap mic, but they work decently for this application because the cabinet sound isn't your main sound. Of course they have mics that are like an actual actually RE20 would be way better than the D12. Or there's a lot of different. Earthworks makes some nice mic that works well for bass cabinets, but any kick mic you can get a decent sound with will work. So here's a little bit of that. Actually, I'm gonna turn on this ampeg BA210s V2 um, and run straight into the return. So I'm gonna bypass the preamp and use pretty much all this stuff as the preamp for it, and then I'm gonna have the IR still running to the system. I also have a DI from the sound, everything before the send. So right now, what we gonna run? We're gonna run the SGT um, into the Spectracomp into the 1073. Then we're gonna take that signal through the send and send it to the return on the bass amp, effectively making that the preamp for the amp. Just using the power section from the actual physical amp. And then we're going to take that signal from that amp and mic it with a kick mic and run that back into the system as well. Then we're going to mix that with the DI signal, and we still have the XLR out running to the IR, the Aguilar 410 um, setup as well. So it's like I'm running two different cabinets. I'm running the Ampeg 210 cabinet and the Aguilar 410 cabinet, and I have a DI signal split there. So it's kind of like getting a little bit of all that in there. Matter of fact, yeah, give me 1 second so I can switch something around real quick. Give me 1 second, guys. Basically, what I'm going to do here, I'm pretty much just going to run an XLR direct out. No, that's not going to work. Okay, so I think I might have misspoke. So let me see, make sure I got this right. So I'm taking my send to the amp. Make sure it is. Yeah. That's going into the return. That's the send. Okay. So I got it running from the send to the amp. Right, return and miking that up. And I also have the XLR out running to yeah, we'll do it without the DI. I mean without the IR rather. So basically with this configuration we're gonna run the XLR as our DI out and then run the send over to the amp. So alright, here we go. I don't know why I made that so complicated, guys, and my apologies. There we go. So now, let's see. So, great thing about this little setup here, like this, when you're running this IR and it's primarily the dry signal, you're getting just a touch of that Aguilar cabinet in there, as well as you're getting on the other, you're getting primarily the, the DI signal right there. Then running into the amp and getting that mic'd up, you're getting another layer of bottom to play with. You pretty much can mix the two. So that's the little GK amp right there. You guys can't really see my settings for it, but pretty much. Let's see what I got here. on the Scallion Kruger. I'm actually running it off of my B3. So bass is on 7, mids is 0, treble is 5. Mid frequency is 500, gain is 40, level is 100, and the color is set to mid, and the mix is 0, meaning it's completely just the amp sound, model sound. But yeah, so pretty much, guys, it's you know having a nice simple chain with some things that add just slight characteristics. Things like your amp model head. I mean, either your amp model or your analog preamp pedal type thing functioning as the head, of the situation, and then that running into a compressor and then into a 1073 preamp. If you have a real one, you're lucky because they're very expensive. But if you can't afford one, for half of that price, for 500 plus the IRs and everything else you get with the Zoom B6, you could get that close enough to that 1073 sound. Nobody's gonna know. No, they won't know. Nobody know. Nobody care. It's close enough. Did it sound good? It sound good? All right, cool. That's all we know. They'll never know. They're gonna find out. No, they won't. No, they won't. Not unless I tell them or they watch my videos. But yeah, then you can run that signal through a send to your amp. If you want to mic your amp actual cabinet up, run that to the return on there, and that'll give you bypass the amps preamp, so you don't have 3 preamps running there in a row. But yeah, and then you just throw a little eye on it, or you run a straight DI out. If you don't have a cabinet, or say you're recording in a hotel room and you just got your B6, you put that 1073 on and an IR, and you're gonna go, and it's gonna be fire every time, every single time. And like your natural sound of your bass is really gonna come through and shine a lot more. But if you want the sound of an amp or a preamp, then you just throw that in front of all that with a compressor, to keep things tame reasonably. And then yeah, you got a good signal. Do not over compress. Compress very little, if at all. You don't really for when you're sending the tracks out to folks. So like if you got to send it out to an engineer, compress it as little as possible. Just enough EQ and things to shape it the way you want it to sound, but don't overly process it, compressing it and limiting it, things like that, because it becomes difficult for them to do what they need to do, and it makes them have less options or flexibility of options that they could use. If you've already compressed it the heck out of it, they can't uncompress it, so it needs to just, very little. That's why I said on my Spectracomp, I'm just turning it on for real. I'm leaving it all the way to the left, and I'm just turning it on, and that's it. And that way, only the very excessive peaks are being like brought down just a little bit. It's still a lot of peaks in there, so they can tame it or let the peaks shine or do whatever they got to do from there. But the key is to not over compress it and not over equalize it either. So, to the point where they have to undo a lot of that. They got to bring down all the lows and everything. They're going to have to tame a lot of stuff anyway, depending on the mix, But I just try to give them a nice big bass signal with at least 2 channels, one with the DI signal and one with the IR or a cabinet or both of those thing. I might give them 3 tracks if it's got the IRs and stuff on there too. But flexibility is going to be the key when you're getting it back to folks and you're working. Like when you get that track back to them, it needs to sound good, but it needs to be within a range that the mix engineer has an opportunity to work with it. Because I have got, had to resend out tracks because I added all these plugins and stuff, and they was like, can you just send it without all that garbage on there, So this way, if you do it this way, you pretty much got your raw bass sound, or at least for me, I do like the sound of my actual just plain bass, but I never use that on recordings. It never sits the way I want it to. So I use, my preamps and things like that to enhance the signal frequencies in certain ways. And I use this Neve, like I said, to just add some color, and then the IRs just add the cabinet sound to it, and then I just need to balance that. Or what I prefer is to send that out before the IR, and then I don't have to worry about the balance. I could turn it all the way on 100 on the IR, and then I already have a signal that's 100% DI, and then another signal that's 100% IR, or and or I still have a third track with my actual amp mic'd up with I'm just using a little D12. Was it? Yeah, I think it's a D12, D112, something like that. It's a CAD little joint that come in the little kit, the little kit that's on the drums, the little same one that come with those. It don't have to be fancy. It just needs to be functional and sound reasonably good and workable. Nobody knows the difference um, when they're listening, as long as it sounds good. So nobody, I've never listened to a track, man, I wish he had used really expensive mic or whatever. I don't know. I just don't listen like that. I listen for what the player's trying to portray more than anything. And I think that's what most people do. They just trying to enjoy the music. They're not trying to overanalyze it like a musician does. So, make them enjoy it more than anything. And part of that enjoyment is the sound. So spend some time working through the sounds and stuff. Please worry about your tone. It is very important. But, understand that these are just tools to get your natural sound out to the people, or get the sound that you have in your head out to the people. So, you know, um, from here you can pretty much just add effects. Probably before all of this stuff, you want to run your effects and run it like you're running it into an amp. If you're doing a whole virtual setup, so that'll definitely get you moving around and get you working. So, this has been another episode of All Bass Creations, effects, tutorials, demos, and review. Please subscribe, like, and share. Yes, we need you to subscribe, like, and share. We need them likes up. It definitely helps me in the algorithm. I'm trying to reach a certain goal by next year. You guys have done an amazing job supporting me so far, especially for some reason. I think maybe I was shadow banned for a little bit. I had to get in touch with YouTube. For a few years, they weren't really putting me in the algorithm like that. And it comes to find out they had some weird copyright thing on me that I never had. And then they went and did an investigation, and they couldn't find anything. So, it's just now that they're actually sending me out to you guys. So I definitely appreciate that you guys are now supporting me. I thought I was like, all right, man, maybe they don't want what I got to offer. Nah, but you guys are amazing. You guys have definitely, whenever you guys have found me, you guys have been very supportive and very nice. Even in the comments, I don't really get the negative comments and things like that. And I really do appreciate that. Not that I wouldn't take constructive criticism or criticism in general. Everybody not going to have something nice to say about you. But I do appreciate you guys, really, all the love you guys have shown me. And it's been usually at times when I've been like, man, it's getting a little rough to keep doing. But you guys always find a way to come through for me. So I definitely appreciate y'all. You can find me on all social media at the Bass Negus, or Negus. It's technically pronounced Negus. I say Negus because it helps some of you guys, pronounce it a little easier. But allbasscreations.bandcamp.com. Go check out my music. Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, Tidal, all that stuff. Find my music everywhere. all Bass Creations album, as well as I have singles out as well. Um, some of my music is under Reginald Payne or Reggie Payne, and some of my stuff is under the bass Negus. All my recent stuff is the bass Negus. So definitely check it out when you get a chance, and subscribe, like, and share. Hit that Cash App and the supers. I definitely appreciate y'all, man. And we'll vibe another time. Catch you. Peace.